Hello, I'm Askar Sherlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. On Tuesday, 5 protesters were arrested by the police in Zhanaozen, where the conflict is escalating. On the same day, the company prospecting and production Kazmunaygas filed a lawsuit to the court attempting to recognize as illegal the protest, which now involves about 10,000 people. Meanwhile, the authorities prefer to ignore the problem. The next story has more.
Lawyers of the exploration and production Kazmunaygas company demand to recognize the strike in Zhanaozen illegal and filed an appropriate lawsuit to a court, said the enterprise's public relations director Daulet Jumadil. KMG representatives say that since the beginning of the strike, the company has sustained tremendous losses as the production dropped by 400 tons of oil per day. After 3,000 employees refused to work for already 5 days, the total number of strikers as of right now has reached 10,000 oil workers.
The leadership of the Kazmunaygas is still attempting to set up a constructive dialogue with the strikers and count on the assistance from the local authorities and law enforcement agencies in maintaining law and order in Zhanaozen.
On the other hand, workers say that the company's representatives refuse to negotiate. Among other things, the strikers demand to nationalize the enterprises, change the payment system and replace the chairman of the trade union. More importantly, workers want to see KMG's board chair Timur Kulibayev together with Prime Minister Karim Masimov to lead the negotiations personally.
If the authorities will not listen to our demands, we are ready to do anything, and hopefully this will not result in bloodshed.
Officials in Astana also keep the track of the situation in Zhanaozen. The Minister of Labor and Social Security Gulshar Abdikalikova said that all issues raised by the workers are being examined by local authorities, trade unions and administration of KMG. Meanwhile, the company's employees were joined by the service personnel of the LLP's Cruz and John Doe. It is possible that wives and children of protesters will also join the strike in the near future.
Meanwhile, sociology experts highly recommend the leadership of Kazmunaygas to promptly fulfill the demands of the company's employees, as doing otherwise may lead to a social explosion.
Experts of the Institute of Political Decisions explained the Zhanaozen unrests by the disrespect to the workers' interests, which were apparently omitted in the new collective agreement. Transferring the head office to Astana caused the deprivation of Zhanaozen budget from tax revenue. Thus, the observers correlate the rise of the social tension with the struggle between the regional and capital's elites. Ozen Munaygas is usually the main financial source in Mangistau region. Changing the ownership structure has cut off the regional elite from the possibility of sharing informal dividends and corruption profits.
Mukhtar Ablyazov has sent a new message to the authorities of Kazakhstan, including President Nazarbayev and the General Public Prosecutor Mami. Yet again, the illegal activities of the President's son-in-law and Deputy Board Chair of the National Fund Samruk-Kazana, Timur Kulibayev, are in the spotlight.
According to reports, Kulibayev became a shareholder of the company as a result of several financial frauds, after which he embezzled about $400 million assigned for the deal. According to Mukhtar Ablyazov, Timur Kulibayev has illegally obtained 58% of qualified beneficiary of the company Mangistau Munaygas' shares, engaged in corporate raiding of private investors, and prevented the national company Kazmunaygas from buying the company Mangistau Munaygas. By doing so, Kulibayev caused serious damage to the economic interests of the Republic of Kazakhstan.
After the previous statements by Mukhtar Ablyazov, the attention of law enforcement agencies could be attracted by the upcoming deal with the shares of Kazmunaygas. The first session of specialized trades will be held by Kazakhstan Stock Exchange on March 11th.
The joint stock company Vizor Capital will purchase 100% of the exploration and production Kazmunaygas company stock, which is more than 4 million securities. Recently, Vizor Capital was accused of financial fraud by Mukhtar Ablyazov. The ex-banker emphasized that being a chief financial operator of KMG subsidiary, brokers received $800 million through the issuance of bonds. Moreover, Vizor Capital earned additional $31 million for its services during the privatization of the exploration and production Kazmunaygas, states Ablyazov in his published documents.
A well-known human rights activist, Evgeny Zhovtis, is suing the head of the correctional colony settlement in Ust-Kamenogorsk, where he is currently serving his sentence.
Evgeny Zhovtis claims that the labor rights of the colony prisoners are blatantly violated. Forced by local authorities, convicts work for very little money. The plaintiff declined serving as a safety engineer in a colony and was punished with a disciplinary sanction. Now Zhovtis can no longer leave the territory of the colony, although his detention terms allow him living in the settlement.
The lawsuit of Evgeny Zhovtis, which could actually serve as his personal file, is becoming the case to protect all prisoners in Kazakhstan.
The trial on the suit of a well-known human rights activist is guaranteed to have wide publicity, similarly to the infamous uranium case. On Tuesday, the Chief Justice of the Sarıarka District Court listened to the arguments of attorneys and their clients following the prosecutor's speeches on March 5th. The letter asked for a 14-year term in a maximum security colony for Muhtar Jakishev and 6 years in a general security prison for Talgat Kastaubayev.
The defense of the Kazatomprom case demanded full acquittal of Jakishev and Kastaubayev. Following the prosecutors, attorneys and defendants made their own closing speech. Nurlan Besikeyev stated that his client managed to provide enough arguments that proved the groundlessness of the charges.
The arguments which Muhtar Jakishev brought at the court are precise and understandable enough for the judge not to have objections. It was clear that the latter agreed with many things. I also noticed him taking notes very often. I think that everything which was said by my client will be reflected in the court sentence.
The prosecution relied on the testimony of the national company's former top manager, Malhaz Tsatorya. He said that Kazatomprom's representative office in Vienna was not operational, but still was financed. This was countered by Muhtar Jakishev, who cited documents indicating the office did operate.
There was no legally defined crime in any of the accusations, be it the one linked to the office in Vienna or the black transactions or the episode with Kastaubayev. Thus, he is apparently responsible only for the strategic planning of Kazatomprom.
Prosecutors claim that some mass media added a political meaning to the uranium case. Muhtar Jakishev, according to his attorney, replied that the political tone was initiated by the Attorney General's office, mentioning exiled Rahat Aliyev while talking about the case. Attorney Besikeyev hopes that the verdict will be announced publicly in accordance with the legislature.
To the other news, according to experts, the joint activities of the National Bank, government and Fond Samruk-Kazana can harm the country's economy. Each party pursues their own agenda, which doesn't correspond to the major macroeconomic goal, the people's welfare.
The politics of contention is manifesting itself through monetary and executive authorities of Kazakhstan taking mutually exclusive sides. The chair of People's Bank, Umut Shaykhmetova, states that the government wants to encourage lending policies of bank while regulators are trying to prevent it. There is currently a contradiction at the state level. The regulators' measures are aimed at reducing the credit activity of banks, while the government wants to build up the crediting economy and stimulate the economic growth. Experts say that the so-called blanket of financial system is pulled not only by the regulators and government, but also by a third party, the National Wealth Fund. All three control centers of financial crediting policy cannot find a unified approach.
The government should stimulate the economic growth, which requires finding financial resources. Banks should hold back the inflation, as there are specific numbers indicating that the inflation should not exceed the economic threshold. There is also Samruk-Kazana, for which the main task is to report on the investment projects.
Economist Miriam Mahmudova suggests improving the situation by simply removing the mediators. I would suggest excluding institutions like Samruk-Kazana and Fond Damu, which became simple mediators that raised their production rate while having no actual production. At the same time, experts fail to explain what are the consequences of the pulling the blanket policy. So far, it has not resolved the real problem in any substantial way.